6:02. And as always, I have some additions to the agenda. Under 8E, other business, I just want to get a review and approval of the committee appointment list. Just make sure we got our I's dotted and T's crossed if we have an upcoming SU meeting. Also, right after that, under 8D, other business, approval to accept tuition money from the state of New Hampshire for students attending Windham Regional Career Center. If we can all take time to take money for the Career Center. I also am going to add 2 warrants to the approval. Those dated 8/28 and 8/26 to the list of warrants. And I am also going to add 2 executive sessions to the very end. I do not believe there will be any action, so BCTV can call it a day, or we can go into the conference room for those executive sessions. And with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of 8/21 and 8/29.
Seconded.
Who was the first?
No, moved. Go ahead.
Oh, I thought you said you moved it.
Oh, no, I'd entertain the motion.
Oh, I
That's my,
see.
yeah.
I moved to.
Thank you.
To approve it.
Yes.
Second.
Any discussion about the minutes?
I know that I need to correct that I said the Secretary of State was Will Setting when it's not, it's Jim Condos. But, and to clarify who Will Settings is.
Any other corrections? All those in favor of approving the minutes of 8/21 and 8/29, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions? The ayes appear to have it.
I abstain.
Oh.
I was
Sorry, one
on the guilty.
One abstention, the ayes appear to have it, the ayes have it, the minutes are approved. So, recognition of visitors, as always, we will take comments on items on the agenda during the agenda. If you need bathrooms, I believe the closest bathrooms are downstairs. And I would also like to just take a minute to recognize 2 of our regular attendees that are not here tonight, Carrie and Kate O'Connor. They are the daughters of Martha O'Connor, who has been a tireless advocate for public education. She taught in Brattleboro Elementary. She sat on the BOHS board, the State Board of Education, State College Board, as well as the Lottery Commission. So I hope that our work tonight makes her proud and we continue to serve, but it is a sad loss to our community that she passed away this past week. Communications, I have the board, I believe, all received a hard copy of a letter signed. I'm pretty sure everybody got that. Emily, you received a copy of that letter at the board retreat. I also included 2 communications digitally to the board, one from Timothy Maciel and one from Deborah Eyre. And I also received a communication from EES that there is a Head Start conference that's happening in Boston. And if anybody has an interest in participating, specifically for board members and new board members of entities that are managing Head Start, which we are, it's part of our charge as well. So if there's any board member, unfortunately I cannot go, but if there is any board member that is interested in attending, I can get you information. So if you could just email me interest on that, that would be fabulous. Are there any other communications that I have not mentioned? Excellent. All right. So committee reports. Sean, you want to take it away with finance?
Sure. The Finance Committee of the WSESD met just prior to this meeting. We met at 5 o'clock, and we went over warrants. And I think Christina has agreed to call out the numbers and the amounts of those warrants, which we approved, and the payroll amount also. And then Frank gave a pretty comprehensive review of capital funds and what that means because of the whole auditing process that's now ongoing in the central office. And that's about it, unless I missed something.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, policy and amendment.
Oh, you were gonna read the warrant, so,
But that's not till we approve the warrants,
oh, okay.
because I added them at the beginning, so when we
Yeah,
get
yeah,
to
yeah,
warrant
yeah,
approval,
yeah,
which
yeah.
we
Yep.
decided to have the committees speak before the warrants in case there was a question that we could address it.
I see.
So that's why
Okay.
it's a little awkward, but it
It's a
makes,
little, what I'm not used to. because
But it
of
makes
the
sense.
ages. Yes, fine, fine.
so
No more said.
it made sense to me. So anyway, moving on to the Policy and Amendment Committee, we have been busy. We have a leadership policy that I passed out to the board with the changes that we made 2 weeks ago, indicating that the leadership councils are, put the changes in bold, that the leadership councils are advisory in nature. Also that community members should be at least 50%. I don't have it right in front of me, but in bold. Community members shall comprise at least 50% of the membership of the Leadership Council. So those were the changes that came from the board. Those have been added. If there's any thoughts on that, the Policy and Amendment Committee is meeting next Tuesday, so we can finalize the policy and, get that warned for our next, we can warn that for our next meeting. Yes, David?
I just realized that the other amendments aren't on the agenda. And are we going to warn all of them for the next meeting, after our next policy meeting, so that we can get them on a warning for a ballot?
That's what
Or
we're,
to
that's
go
what
to the
we're figuring out.
attorneys and
Yeah.
then,
I was starting with the easy policy committee stuff first.
Yeah.
So,
okay,
Yeah,
I
that's
noticed
coming
there
up.
were, the other ones that are complete, we haven't approved yet to send that to the attorney, have we?
we approved 2 to send to the attorney, and then the representation and the leadership council weren't finished. So,
And they still are.
and I'd rather just do one conversation and watch the dollars roll up as we speak very quickly. I have a lot of coffee before those conversations, so. Tim Morris has agreed to work on the dog policy that we've kind of sent back to the drawing board a little bit. We had some conversations about that, but it's not ready for prime time, so probably next meeting we'll have a little more ready for prime time dog policy to bring to you. The bulk of our time was spent on the article amendments, and so I'm going to try and briefly explain some of the challenges. And I'm reverting to my 7th grade teaching, having a visual here. So the amendments we're talking about 3 articles, one on grade operation, which is Article 3, Article 4 on school closure, and Article 10 on representation that we've been talking about as a transitional board, as well as on this board and a policy committee. There are some challenges in the process of voting for it because of the stipulations in the Articles of Agreement that the state has given us as the default articles. So in the grades to operate, each town has to vote on that. For school closure and representation, all towns have to vote on that. It was our hope that we could do all of them in one vote. It's still our hope that we could do that. And have people run for the board on the same ballot. Because elections are expensive. It's, Sean, 7,000 is what sticks in my head?
Well, approximately, I don't really know, 3 to 7, let's say, or 5 to 7.
In that ballpark. The problem is, according to the AOE, in the model that we are looking at and considering, the vote has to be commingled, meaning that it has to be counted in the new entity of which Barb Nowakowski is the clerk. And in whole different, the boards of civil authority have to travel from the towns when they do these elections, so they have to run an election all day, and they have to do the individual town counts, and then they have to drive the votes with the Board of Civil Authority to the district, to some central location where there's a new vote count that happens. So we have heard, so the pluses to doing this all in one day, one vote, would be that we save money, that we get members on board more quickly, and there probably is going to be more participation if you have a vote for candidates alongside a vote for these article changes. On the downside, so we were all on board. We thought we had a win-win-win for the board until the logistics of the thing that we don't do, which is running elections, were pointed out to us. So the challenges on doing it one day are that the 3 town clerks are really concerned about the ability to assure the election is done perfectly when they're running an election all day long, doing a count, which often goes till 8 or 9 o'clock, and then traveling into Brattleboro to tally up this commingle vote, which, by the way, has never been really done before in our district. And so how they're going to figure that out and do that in one day. So we've heard from 3 or 4 of the town clerks in letters that they have big concerns about doing this in one day. And then we reached out to Will Senning, who's the State of Vermont Director of Elections, and he also recommended 2 votes because they are cleaner. One of his concerns was that if you have candidates, it seems like the change in the articles is a foregone conclusion and it might be misleading to voters. Yes, Sean?
I actually, after the meeting yesterday with the amendments in policy, I contacted Donna Savage, and she said she defined the word initial in the article that we were speaking about, and she said that actually everything is the same as it was when we originally voted for the directors in May. So nothing is different, and everything is the same. So she actually, so I got that information, then I called my town clerk in Guilford today, and she said, no problem, we can do it. And she highly recommended doing it in March. And the reason for that is that if people were elected in January or February, they'd have to rerun in March. So she said, wait until March, do it all at once. Everybody's going to be there, do it on town meeting day. So that was the recommendation of my town clerk.
So that's great information. We had a different response from the 3 town clerks about doing it in March. And Donna Savage is reversing her memo of 8/5/16, where she has been saying all along in Lyle that they had to be commingled. They're not done like the initial vote. So we're going to have to we're going to have to pay someone to tell us definitively what to do and have them get on the phone with Donna Savage, because I don't want to go through an election and have it be invalidated. So there's a lot of issues that now that we decided what we want, how we're going to make that happen as a committee is more challenging than I thought. And 3 of the 4 town clerks say, don't do it all in one night and really don't do it in March. So maybe we think we better get the consensus from them in some way and figure out and have maybe Bob there. Is that Bob, did you hear?
Will Senning, when I spoke with him, did suggest that we could have Mark Ottinger speak directly to Will Senning while Mark creates the ballot language, and then Will Senning can say, yes, that works, it's follows election law, which takes us out of it.
I like that idea.
I do too.
So I just wanted to kind of try and explain it, because as a committee, it took us a while to sort of like, wait a minute, we can't do this, we can't do that, and nothing's really straightforward in terms of how we get our information, and none of us are election specialists. So this is what we're grappling with. If you have thoughts to weigh in on, do we, save money, or do we worry about the election, or maybe this is the route. And so the committee's meeting again next Tuesday, 9 o'clock. You're welcome to come if you have thoughts on that and want to participate in that. And that's kind of where that committee stands. I forgot personnel. Has personnel met?
Yes, we have not, but Sean is the convener.
Oh, I am. I didn't realize that.
Ah!
Okay, I got it now.
You're just the convener. You don't have to be chair of that, but you're calling the meeting, so. And Ann, you were convener of diversity, I believe.
We reported on that at our last meeting.
So there hasn't been another meeting?
Not since then, no.
Gotcha. And then the Sustainability Council,
We were supposed to meet today at 5, but it conflicted too much. with
right,
finance.
with
So
too many others.
we are going to find out a time and place today.
Excellent. And so Frank was also going to present a little bit of some of the building sustainability initiatives that we've been working on, just so that the board, because we're all have adopted new buildings that we knew nothing about, really. And so just to give us a broad brush overview for the full board on some of the work that different boards have done, because I know we've all been doing some of that work individually, but it's great to hear what our neighbors are doing
Sure.
in the past.
And I don't want to put folks on the spot if they're not ready, but for our largest entity, Brattleboro Union High School, either Steve or Robert, would you care to give some comments about the excellent standard that we've set in terms of sustainability and energy efficiency?
Sure. Even before my tenure, my predecessor, Jim Day, spent a lot of time and effort trying to ensure that we would become as energy efficient as possible, and that has been, carried on diligently by Robert Clerk. Through the years, we've done several things that have been positive for us. Among them, Robert, I have your folder, not my folder. Among them, we've refit parking lights, parking lot lights. We've done building wall mounting. We've replaced metal halide fixtures with LED fixtures to reduce our energy cost. In 2013, we were the first Energy Star certified school in Vermont, and we still have that appellation. We were lauded by in 2014, Governor Shumlin gave us an award for environmental excellence for our Energy Star work. Through that, we've also switched to a wood chip plant that has reduced our cost and our output quite a bit. And at this point, we're looking at things like looking at our HVAC efficiencies. We use a software system that allows us to, from a distance and with a lot more detail and a lot more finesse, kind of look at how the building is functioning, and Robert knows more of the details than I do. Look how the building is functioning and adjust it to maximize comfort for our students and teachers, while at the same time becoming energy efficient. Most recently, due to Frank's effort, we've seen a significant reduction in energy costs because of our participation in solar energy initiatives locally. Frank, you would know the exact number, but that's been a significant savings for us and a significant decrease in emissions. This year, Robert has looked at a baseboard radiation heating project in the BUHS kitchen and culinary arts. We've replaced our fossil fuel heating source with biomass heated hot water. And currently, and this is the real exciting stuff, we're looking to insulate all of our exposed air supply ductwork. And that doesn't sound like much, but every little bit kind of helps. And I can't say enough about Robert Clerk and the work he's done, ensuring that we are reducing our footprint and becoming efficient, and saving the taxpayers considerable money. Robert, did I miss any high points?
Yeah, the 2014 Governor's Award for Environmental Excellence.
I think I said that.
Did you?
I did.
I was waiting for it.
Yeah.
Just skimmed over it.
Yeah. So. And Frank, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but that's kind of, in broad brushes, that's kind of what we've done here.
Yeah, excellent overview, and also from a sort of a metric in terms of efficiency relative to other schools, cost per square foot for heating and lighting is among the lowest in the state, and Vermont leads the nation in many of those measures. So Brattleboro Union High School is under Robert's leadership at the facility level, and the administration's support and the board in community commitment it's really an excellent standard for others to aspire to. And this isn't just our opinion. This is the opinion also of energy experts. I mentioned earlier at the Finance Committee, Norm Etkin is a very highly regarded professional engineer and energy auditor, has had a career in Vermont for over 30 years. Unfortunately, he's moving toward retirement because he's just been a treasure for good strategies, analysis, and investments. So that's the high school. A couple other highlights. I would assume most of you have heard that the Green Street School has been recognized for another very stellar energy efficiency improvement. They replaced 1928 steam boiler system, oil-fired, that had a 1978 backup boiler system just 2 years ago. And that was through a number of partnerships with the Efficiency Vermont, with the Clean Energy Development Fund, with our local office, Windham Wood Heat Initiative, where they contributed, I think it was nearly $250,000 in support of that project, which was just a little under $1 million. And again, we've taken the system off oil, off the fossil fuels, and moved to the local resource, the wood chips. We have done the same thing at the Academy School. Was it 3 years ago, David? 4 years ago? 4 years ago. Moved the Academy School, the largest elementary school in our region, from oil to a pellet system. And again, we had a partnership with various entities that help subsidize these improvements through competitive grant applications. We've also invested at Academy School, along with the Green Street School, in a very up-to-date control system for making sure that, as Robert has done here, that we're exchanging that cubic feet per minute of air in each classroom based on a known standard that keeps kids healthy, and using the wood heat. We can do that at a lower cost than what we were doing with the fossil fuels. So that's Academy. Green Street, Oak Grove, we have an energy audit on that building. We have a number of thermal improvements that are in a capital plan that we will be discussing very soon. As we kind of move around the region, Guilford has done a terrific upgrade. Again, removed the oil boiler fossil fuel system to a wood chip system. We did this 2 years ago as well. This is all part of me working with boards and the principals, the energy, our facility managers, and the advocates in Vermont primarily for energy improvement, energy efficiency. So the Guilford project was substantially subsidized by the Clean Energy Development Fund, about $100,000, and that system has also had a nice upgrade on the controls. Dummerston, we did a controls upgrade. We haven't replaced the core fuel system, but it's something that we have looked at. We have an energy audit on the Dummerston School. Putney School, Central School, several years ago, there's a major energy upgrade, not only for fuel source, but also for insulation and a control system. And then just last March, we finished a very nice upgrade to the most modern pellet system with a control system for that school. So, did I forget anyone? I'm sure I did, but
You got them all.
okay. So those are just a few of the.
You didn't mention that a few years ago you combined with the town to get a favorable rate on fuel oil purchasing as well.
Oh, yeah.
That's not necessarily an energy saving, but as we use less, we're also, by combining with the town, we're getting a much better rate. In fact, it was recognized last night you weren't there, but you were recognized at the select board meeting for, once again, coming up with a really good contract.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, it's been great to be collaborative with the town of Brattleboro. They order about 80,000 gallons of fuel. That's come down a substantial amount because the town has gone to a lot of wood source fuel. And as a region, yes, we've dropped our fuel oil use way down, but our competitive bid process has also resulted in substantially lower rates, 30, 40, 50 cents per gallon versus what I see that other systems have signed up for. Steve mentioned that the solar array initiative, something that many of us work. David was part of a leadership group many years ago, and I work with a consortium of 52 schools in the state of Vermont to try to bring together a serious purchasing power to bring stability to the solar development investor, because for folks that may be aware, those investors have had a lot of trouble in Vermont going from permitting to funding to breaking ground and then signing up customers. But we worked with a number of firms. Brattleboro Town had an early initiative to sign up a net metering contract with Next Sun Energy. I think about a 10% discount on purchased energy, $100,000 total cost, so down 10%, which is a nice savings, and then the rest of the system over a 3-year period, working through a lot of hoops, negotiating net metering contracts that gave us a good run for 20 years. We're able to award a bid approximately a 25% discount from the Green Mountain Power rate, and we've been doing that now for 3 years, and we get 17 more to go. So there's been a lot of really good energy investments and efficiency improvements, and we got a lot of plans for the future.
Thank you, Frank. Do you have those numbers on the heating cost per square foot for all the schools from the energy audits at this point?
We had a great state database with NorMed. Can I just to say here's where we are and here's what the rest of the state looks like? I'll see what's available. I know since he's stepped out, I don't have an up-to-date database, but I'm sure.
Do you have his home number?
Yeah. He's actually, I think he's moved into private consulting. So. Yeah. But I can see what we can do.
Because I just think if we're looking at capital planning and the Sustainability Council maybe could be meeting at the same time as the Finance Committee and kind of work together to figure out the best, some of the stuff that saves the most energy is not the most exciting stuff, like ceiling ductwork, but I mean, that we, it doesn't sound as fun as a solar array, but honestly, that is some of the best work we can do, so that maybe that would be a good time for the Sustainability Council to meet with the capital plan and just sort of dovetail our work with some data about how we're doing in the various schools now that we have 10 facilities to manage.
I believe we do have an energy audit on every building that's within 3 years old. Maybe not the high school, just because they've been so proactive, but we have. So I think we do have that data
that would be really
for
great.
us.
I know you're busy with an audit right now, but maybe once the auditors leave, that would be really fascinating.
When you say that Oak Grove, some of the things are planned for in the capital plan, what are those future things?
One of the biggest energy return in Oak Grove is they have those 1950 block glass wall in the upper section, and in the capital plan there is a commitment to replace those. The other is the roofing. When we do re-roofing, we look at the thermal properties of the insulation and make that take that opportunity to substantially improve. And we have, I see, $70,000 plan there. So if you look at the, I think it's you see, and then you see the window systems, 100,000, Oak Grove. Sort of toward the bottom of the capital plan. We're referring to a document that's on the website, capital plan document, It's page 2 of 5 for Brattleboro. And that's what that is. And that's kind of what Christine is speaking to, is those, it's not a really exciting project, but those those glass block walls are awful thermal ideas, so I'm gonna replace them.
Thank you, Frank, for that overview. I know we'll be hearing more in depth, but it's nice to just get a broad brush. And Communications Council, is there any updates
Can
from?
we ask a question? Is it possible to ask a question?
I can. We have to take a tour in about 5 minutes, so I can do about maybe, and I have to get through warrants.
Well, I'm just
and I
wondering,
can
is there a time that we can talk about the letter that 350 Brattleboro and Extinction Rebellion
So
sent?
I've left a place at the end because often these conversations mean that I lose board members for votes for business. So I've left items not on the agenda at the end of the meeting, so that we can discuss them, because I have had trouble losing board members for important votes that need to happen. So we have left time, and we always leave time at the end of every meeting for anything not on the agenda. But I'm giving the agenda the first priority.
Yeah, I was just wondering if that time is really going to exist.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to make sure that time was really going to exist.
That time has happened at every meeting, so
Okay.
I would presume that I will continue unless, Dorian makes a swift turn here and we have to evacuate the building. I would plan on doing it, so.
Point of order, Madam Chair. There was a vote by the board on the 25th of June that climate crisis should be on the agenda at every meeting. And if it were written in today's agenda properly, I think Ms. Brow's comment would be germane right now. And it is rather burdensome to put public comment on non-agenda items at the end of the meeting.
So, point taken, that climate change, in my mind, listening to and understanding how we can improve the sustainability of our buildings was our board's, was my and the SU's, because the Sustainability Council, which is addressing that, could not meet because of time conflicts. So that was our effort to address that. I think that our board is intent on adhering to the spirit of that motion. We've not called it climate change, but I think by addressing building sustainability and energy use, that is directly speaking to what we're doing to address climate change and understanding these buildings, which we have all inherited that we're not familiar with. So I think we are adhering to the intent and the spirit.
But it's not on the agenda.
It's under the Climate Change Council, yes, but the council did not meet, and so then I put this in here because it wasn't. I had to warn this last Wednesday, and the meeting was not canceled until Thursday or Friday. So once a meeting's warned, I can't do anything about it. So it's the problem.
I mean, it's not on the agenda of you, the directors, and it's not on the agenda in such a way that the public could see that they have an opportunity to discuss something related to climate crisis, not, just to listen to a committee report for a non-existent committee.
The council exists, and we spoke as a board and looked at what we're doing to address climate change. So, and there is opportunity at the end for anything not on the agenda to be discussed, and that will occur. So, moving on to finances, so we can take our tour. I would entertain a motion, this is like I'm talking to a lawyer, for approval of the warrants of August 12th, 2019 in the amount of $729,543.71. The warrants of August 14th, 2019 in the amount of $429,174.52. The warrants of August 19th, 2019 in the amount of $116,998.51. And the payroll authorizations of August 16th, 2019, the amount of $357,643.42, as well as the warrants dated 8/28/2019, which are 1045, 1053, 1057, and 1059, in a total amount of $170,874.43, as well as the warrants dated 8/26, numbers 1050, 1052, 1054, and 1055 in the total amount of $202,418.94.
Christina, so I hate to interrupt, but are we still gonna do the other committees?
Oh, was there another committee? Oh,
I think there's
communication.
communication and additionally also the programmatic and equity committee.
Sorry, you did that. Can we go back to that once I get the awards?
We met, I'm the chair of the equity. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's different from the sustainability. Maybe, okay.
I'm
we should go.
sorry.
We
Communications
just
first.
sent the minutes out, so nobody knows about it. That's why you don't know.
That's why I don't know about it.
But I think communication, is it the case that they don't report out unless the meeting minutes are out?
No, I tried to link it, but I didn't know there was a meeting because the minutes weren't there. So I didn't have it to put it
Okay.
on my list of things that I needed. I knew you guys were meeting, but, so it's a little just,
Okay.
so since, well, I don't have a motion on the table, but can we finish this motion and go back? Is that okay to the board? That we go back in the communications and you guys can report out?
Second.
Thanks. Do I have a motion on those warrants? Because I don't want to do that again.
So moved.
Some- yeah.
So-
I thought you moved to.
Oh, no, I asked to entertain the motion. So
Okay.
Ann moved it,
All
and
right.
thank you for the second, Sean. David?
A couple of questions about warrants. I find that because they come they come oriented toward the reports rather than the actual warrants. The warrants are on their side, and I have to hold this like this and then tip my head like that to be able to read them. And I understand there's some software that would remedy that. So I would like to the board to agree to purchase or somehow make them available so we can look at them. Maybe I can't manipulate PDFs without some special program.
There's actually a way I can show you. There's a way to do it with free program that'll turn all of
Okay,
them so
so
they'll
skip that one.
Sorry.
Okay.
And I can show anybody
yeah.
who wants to.
Yeah,
The other
right.
thing is that the pages aren't, or they're numbered by groups, so it's hard to know how to identify. I came to Finance Committee and I heard that if Frank has the check number, he can identify, but I didn't know before this that that was the way to identify questions that we had on any of the checks. So basically, we don't have a system, we haven't agreed on a system for us to get our questions answered. So I'd like us to take after this, conversation or at the next meeting or somewhere, agree on a system that we will use to ask Frank to explain things or to answer questions about any of the particular warrants. And the other thing, and I think this is actually a larger issue, and maybe only for me, but the way we're operating right now, checks are being sent out before the warrants are approved. And at least that's my understanding. I don't know if that's changed in the interim or not, but I don't think that's really aligned with our responsibility to make sure we know what's being spent and are overseeing the system, unless there's some really, something that just has to be paid or they're gonna close the building or something. I think that we need to approve the warrants before the money checks are put in the mail. So those are my questions about finances.
So perhaps we could put that on the next agenda on the Finance Committee report?
If I can make a comment, we went over this in quite a bit of detail at our first two finance meetings. And we had decided that we would do it as the BUHS did, just to make sure that people that have been contracted had, contracts were paid in a timely manner. If we start holding up things for questions, I think it might make the wheels come off the wagon a little bit in terms of flow of work that needs to be done, contracted work that has.
No, I agree, we don't want that to happen. That's why I'm saying if we had a system that we knew to follow, we could make sure that didn't happen. The Brattleboro board operated in a similar manner, but that developed without any conscious decision on the part of the board. For years, we went in and looked at the warrants and signed them in the office, and gradually people came out and didn't know to do that, and we wound up just signing them at the table. And we never really looked at them ahead of time. That always troubled me, but now that we're a small board with a big budget, it seems like we should be able to be a lot more conscientious about reviewing the warrants and asking questions. I'm sure you remember the little sticky pads you put on the warrant. If you had a question, then Jim would call you.
Well, actually, the way we did it at the OHS is that we'd receive all the warrants prior by email. We'd go through all those warrants. This whole batch that we just approved tonight, I probably spent 3.5, 4 hours going over warrants and making notes. So,
On an angle.
yeah, well, I know how to rotate, so that's, it's much easier. So that is the time that I am committing to make sure, and then I bring questions, as we did the finance meeting tonight. Bring questions, and Frank, if you give Frank the information, he can come back on the spot with questions. So historically, it's always happened to be UHS very successfully. It was just like the conversation that we had the first two finance committee meetings, to make sure that we didn't start making things more difficult than they have to be.
So I'm gonna put this into the next meeting because we had conversations with finance committee level. Frank had large challenges with both a whole new school district system and a whole new computer system that the state decided was a really good time to do both of those things together. And the state decided to give us a computer system that doesn't work very well on top of that. So Frank has had a lot, and it's audit season, so Frank has had a lot of challenges. So I'm happy to bring that to the board at the next meeting, just to have a general discussion about how we're proceeding in the meanwhile and how board questions can get answered. In the meanwhile, if you have a question on the warrants that you've received, Sean's your man, right? Send it to
Well, yeah,
Sean.
except I don't have more information about the warrants than anybody else on the board.
No, but you're
I
the-
can
you're the
review
DP,
them,
yeah.
I can look at them, and Christina actually sent me one. I found it, I looked at it, and it was discussed tonight. It was actually a legacy warrant, so it wasn't under our purview, but, that would be fine. If people wanted to question, I don't really have the answers, but they can question.
But that it would go through one person, it would go through the chair of finance.
Well,
so
because I think the board needs to decide whether we're comfortable with doing it this way, or whether we need to see the warrants before they go out, or approve them before the checks are out.
Yeah.
It's not a committee decision, I think.
Thank you, David. I'll put that on for next time. And in the meanwhile, if you have a question, and I can show you the neat code that you can figure out what warrants are getting spent where. That's really fun. That's the only new, really fun development, is you can know what things were. And Frank is very good. You can quiz him.
That I know.
So, sorry about that. Back to Communication Council. Is there any updates from that?
So we had our meeting last Friday. We did the organizational meeting, and I was elected chair, and Emily is the clerk. We did some objective setting. I just jotted down a few of them. ID key areas of public interest and have regular communication through multiple outlets aimed at informing the public and inviting them to meetings. We're going to be holding regular meetings the first and third Thursdays at noon at the library, at Brooks Library. And then for next time, we put down some action items of an affirming LGBTQ message, looking into creating a media map of towns. Where do townspeople get their information? And we had a question about the WSESD webpage, because in the past it was like Google pages.wsesd. I know that some emails changed to wsesdvermont.org, so I don't know if that's going to change or
No,
still Google.
they'll just get forwarded to them.
Okay. That's all I had.
Thank you. And just one little follow-up. We had talked about working on a mission statement through the Communications Council, and so that's on your agenda.
It is.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Communications Committee. And then the Equity Committee.
Programmatic.
Yes, Programmatic Equity Committee, sorry.
So we also met last week. I was elected chair and David is the clerk. We'll send along the meeting minutes soon after the meeting. We had already had the draft. So we really went over what is our mission statement, which I think we were going to share with the board. maybe in the minutes, or, I mean, I have it here. I can read it, but I don't think it's permanent. We just kind of were brainstorming after we had talked a lot about our goals, and we realized that, you know, we needed to kind of figure out what is the committee tasked with, and then think about like what are goals that are important to the board and share them with them. So we came up with, to help the board understand data, measures, results around equity issues, and create a framework of proactive goals we wish to track and support the improvement of. So it's fairly broad. We did talk a lot about what programmatic equity means, what performance equity means, and what some of the things that previous boards have been doing, or at least data measures that they've been getting often. I know in Brattleboro we had at each, the principals would send out data on Academy, Green Street, and Oak Grove, and the pre-K programs. So we talked a little bit about that. We came up with some, on our next agenda, some things that we'd like to think more about. One was reviewing the improvement plans for all the schools. It makes sense to kind of see what data we already have and we're already collecting and the direction we're going. Look into the current state of things, like what data already exists statewide on our schools, or what's just readily available. And then to revisit a little bit of goal setting. We thought it might be nice eventually to learn what data exists, review the improvement plans, and possibly present out the current state to the board, or at least what we learned, and then have a chance to ask some questions or delve deeper at least into a little bit of data before we set some goals. So.
So thanks, it sounds like a good first meeting. And I think another thing I want to add to the agenda perhaps is starting to work out those mission statements for the committees and bring them in front of the whole board, and just have an opportunity to suss out and make sure we're all in agreement that the committees and the boards are aligned in the committee's work, 'cause that's what you do. So I appreciate you already having a working, which some of our committees don't, especially ones that I chair, so I appreciate that very much. Any other committees I forgot that have met? Excellent. So, in an effort to stave off deep vein thrombosis and do something interesting and help us all be familiar with the building that, with the exception of a couple people on the board, most of us only know they have a really nice conference room. Nancy Wise has agreed to give us a tour of the Windham Regional Career Center. And BCTV is actually going to be coming along, because I think it is one of the sparkling jewels in the WSESD is that we have a career center here, and there's great opportunities for students. And so I'm thrilled that BCTV is going to try their hand at the technology of spreading the word of this throughout the whole district, so people know a little bit more about what happens here. So everybody's welcome to come along. And I turn it over to Nancy.
Brought you a little bit of data and a couple of articles. This form is actually the form you're going to get, I think, from each school.
Can I interrupt you to introduce yourself?
Oh, sure, I'm sorry. I'm Nancy Weiss, and I am the new interim director of the Career and Technical Center here in Brattleboro. And I started at the Career Center last year as the special needs coordinator, and then became the interim director last year. And I want to let everybody know we have 396 seats that are filled at the Career Center this fall so far. We seem to be adding kids every day as we have this sudden influx at the beginning of the school year. And we, some of those students are with us. Some students get counted twice because they're enrolled in more than one class at the Career Center. What that means is when we do what we call our FTEs, our full-time student equivalents, or our full-time equivalents, those students spend a larger percentage of our day, but the number of chairs that actually get sat in every day are 396. So that's kind of how it gets counted. And then we, as well as doing that, kind of our exciting news is that we had our first group of LNA students who graduated from the class last year. And so we had 8 students who passed their LNA exams. Many of them were juniors, some of them were seniors. And so in most cases, they can start working as an LNA before they graduate from high school, which is really nice because it pays more than working at most jobs that high school students get. And then our FBLA, our Future Business Leaders of America group, went to the Nationals this spring or early summer. And they were ranked 9th in the nation out of 9,500 of America's best high school students. Our group came in 9th. So we were thrilled with that. And they've worked really hard. We also had students who participated in the Skills USA competition in robotics this summer. They did well. They did not place nationally, but they did well. And considering that we're from a little Vermont high school or career center, we felt really good about that. So we have lots of things to show you this evening. I'm thrilled that the community is going to join us. And we are going to first head up to our technical building. And I suspect that may take long enough that we may have to do a part 2 to see the things in this building another night, but I will definitely come back and do that with you. So let's head up there. I'm going to leave these over here on the counter if any members of the This building houses most of what we would consider our heavy labs, machine tooling or manufacturing, forestry and natural resources, construction, automotive, and then our public safety and law enforcement programs. So public safety and law enforcement includes the fire program, and many of our students are volunteer firefighters, the EMR program, emergency rescue services, and then also we have a law enforcement program. So I'm going to start kind of on this side and we'll work our way around. We have a small office, a small conference room. We have a classroom that houses our pre-tech exploratory program, which allows students to explore all the programs that we offer, and also talks a lot about employment skills, those soft skills that you want everybody to have, firm handshake, look the person in the eye, speak clearly, all of those things that social media might suggest that we aren't ingraining in our kids anymore. In this next classroom, we have our academic support. And the nice thing about academic support is that under the Perkins grant, it can serve 7 categories of students that are so broad that we can offer specialized services to almost every student in the world. And so basically it's open to anybody. We do have some students that we pull in, and then we have other students who have the privilege of just walking in for extra help, whether it's editing a paper or working on a project, or they just want somebody to sit down and chat with for a minute, or they want an assignment re-explained. And then also that same person does a lot of pushing into classrooms to help support students in the classroom who might have a slight weakness in one skill or another, and they can just help boost that skill in a couple of quick lessons. Then if we go down this way, I will take you into our forestry program. Each of our programs has a classroom as well as a lab. And so this is the forestry classroom where kids do any of their writing activities, any reading activities. Well, the kids call it their academic learning. And then each of our programs also has a lab. And if you want to step into the lab, let me just find the light switch for you. I don't know where the arrow's light switch is. So you'll see we have a tree here, or a piece of a tree that we've mounted and secured, and kids learn to actually climb that tree so that if they want to work for the power company, they know how to climb a pole, they know how to climb a tree if they're working for a forester. They learn to drive the skidder. We have a portable sawmill that we use. We dry wood at the moment in the greenhouse because our horticulture program is not in existence at the moment. We spend a huge amount of time learning how to safely run a chainsaw, to do all kinds of maintenance on heavy equipment. And there's a huge amount of time spent on safety in every one of these labs, because as you can see, there is a ton of equipment here that it's really important that we, A, keep kids safe, B, they know how to keep themselves and the environment chemically safe, and then also that they know about sustainable forestry in this room or sustainable construction next door. So it's all oriented to 21st century skills. So I'm going to just quickly show you the other programs so that you can see. Suggested as a capstone project last year that one of the kids teach me to drive the skidder. He backed out on that. He said, I've seen you park your car, I'm not teaching you how to drive the skidder. So this is our manufacturing lab and classroom. We have a new CNC machine that I hope is on the way, or going to be on the way very soon, that we wrote a grant in order to get. We will add one other piece of grant-funded equipment this year as well to this lab. We have a brand new instructor who is the volunteer fire chief in Grafton. He also has his own shop, or his own business that is a machine tooling shop. with every machine tool or manufacturing type job in the state of Vermont and the challenges of education, the hard part of this machining area is keeping up to date with technology and having the funding to do that. So our new CNC machine, it was incredibly expensive. We could have bought a car easily, but we love the fact that we're getting something that kids are going to use, that will last for a long time, and that can be upgraded. So that was kind of our goal.
What does it do?
It is a 5-axis grinding and cutting machine for mostly for metal, but it could do, with the right bits, it can do other substances like stone and wood. And let me tell you, I knew nothing about CNC milling machines at the beginning of the summer, and we have to have 3 bids, competitive bids, in order to buy one. And so I've spent a whole lot of time learning about the difference between 3-axis and 5-axis, and what you want in a milling machine.
So where would students, when they graduated this program, what are some places in the area that they might find?
So they might work at, here in the city, or in Brattleboro at GS Precision. There are several other shops in the area. Then there's Sonic, which is in Bellows Falls. There's a big machining company that makes all the emergency lights for vehicles in Charlestown, New Hampshire. So there are several employers in the area, and we have several area employers who are joining our advisory board, which we're increasing, with the goal that kids who walk out of this program will be the person they hire versus anybody else. And part of that is, part of the importance of these programs is getting kids work-based learning experiences so that they know not only how to actually manufacture, but they also know how to hold a job. And those are kind of 2 different things often. And so we want to make sure that they can hold those jobs for a long period of time.
Do prospective employers contribute to the funding of it?
It depends on the situation. So sometimes what we get from them, they do contribute some funding sometimes, or they donate things. Like they might have a machine they aren't going to use anymore but still has life, that they might donate, and I'm sending out my beg, borrow, and pray letters, because that's a good way to get machinery. But they also give their time, which is really important to us, in that they tell us what our curriculum needs to include so that our kids really are employable when they graduate. So, and I want to take you next door to see our tiny house that we're building. And then I also want you to see our automotive program quickly. They are enrolled at the high school or at a sending school, and then they're enrolled here as well. And we do have a math and an English teacher that center on technology. So for instance, our construction person is currently working with our math teacher, and they teach a geometry through construction course. So for kids who geometry doesn't necessarily make sense on paper, it often makes sense when they're doing it in the real world of building. So last year, one of my first days, I came and toured the construction shop, and this was a pile of lumber and supplies and a metal trailer. And over the past year, this has become, on a part-time basis, a tiny house that will continue to grow. We actually contracted with a community member to build the tiny house. She drew a basic drawing, then our students developed the architectural plan, and now they've been building the house. Our students in electricity did the wiring of the house, but our students have done the whole thing. And this will be her business location when it's done. It is wired for that, it's developed for that, designed for that, and it's mobile. And it's going to be extremely energy efficient. So that's our tiny house project that we're finishing this year. And as I think the board knows from last year, although it's a new board now, our second year construction students spent their April break last year in Florida working on 2 projects for Habitat for Humanity. So it's really important to us that our kids understand the importance of being environmentally sound, having good work ethics, but also the idea of giving back to their community. So
That's fabulous.
And they keep measuring to make sure it's going to go through the door.
A little air out of tires.
That's right.
Since Dylan, just before ninth grade, he just
So this is our automotive shop. And this is actually a part-time live shop, which means we work on cars and buses and trucks that belong to the district or to employees or to community members. At the moment, we seem to also have some small engine jobs here, a motorcycle and a snowmobile. But we spend the first month working on making sure kids know how to keep themselves safe in here, because we literally will they'll lift cars above their heads with the lifts, so it's really important that they know about the safety piece. Students in this program spend 2 years and then they graduate with the student level of a certificate to work in a dealership garage or in a garage that somebody owns within the community. So they know how to do your brakes and your exhaust and your alignment and rotate your tires, and that's about all and change your oil, and that's about all I can tell you about what goes on with cars, because as the kids here tell me, I have no idea how a car computer system works. And so they think it's really funny when I pull up and say, my low tire pressure light went on, can you fix this right away? And they'll say, when did it go on? And the last time it was when I was in Putney, and I just drove really fast to get here, but not over the speed limit. And they think that's a hoot. They're like, what happens if you have to change the tire? I can actually do that. So anyway, and then the last 2 shops, one is our woodworking shop, and that shop hosts a group of students this year in a new program that's a half-day program that includes I believe includes an English credit, a math credit, and 2 elective credits. And they spend 2 blocks a day all year in that class. and then also our public safety programs. So that's it for this building. I am going to let you guys go back to the meeting, and the next time we meet with me, you meet with me, we will tour all of the programs down below that include our LNA program and biomed and everything else. And if we're lucky enough to have Dan Braden here, he will take parts of animals out of his refrigerator that they dissect, and we can all say ew, and then we can go back to the meeting. If he's not here, we'll just see their spaces. So, and filmmaking. So anyway, we can head back to the Cusick room.
Well, thank you so much. This was really great.
Thank you. I'm sorry for the speed tour, but I also want to give you a call. More than I guess at that point. I'm sorry. Well, thank you, and please feel free to come for a tour when kids are here too.
It's much more fun,
Yeah, it is.
Lost a few more.
I know. They're trying to drive that skidder, I know, for sure. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have a form. I'll move forward to the passport. Showing that we do hire the best and the brightest, there was a concern from a faculty member that I actually, because of the points of order and the other discussions, that I may have not had a vote on the final approval of the finances. So if I can just go back, and all those in favor of approval of the warrants, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays or abstentions? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The warrants are approved. Thank you. Unfinished business. So after the last meeting, after we adjourned, the question about advertising for the note-taker position came up, and we had adjourned so we could have no further business. And I thought it was extremely important that we have a note-taker. So since we can't expend money for board things without the board approving it, I said take it out of my stipend, because taking notes has been taken out of Tim's life for this board, and if the board does not approve it, I am happy to fund it. So I am asking the board for approval of funds up to $600?
Yeah, it won't be that much, but yes.
Funds up to $600 to advertise for the note-taker position.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve up to $600 to advertise for a note-taker position, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I do. Thank you.
And we do have to.
Yes, so that's the next part.
We have 2 letters of interest. It will be in the Commons tomorrow, so we need to wait to see if there are any others. But by next meeting, I will bring you possible candidates.
Comments came up today. So
Did it come out today?
Yeah.
Okay.
Today's Wednesday.
Today's
We
Wednesday?
didn't have a Monday.
So I'm wondering if we could, if it would be okay with the board if perhaps Ian and I and Lyle reviewed the note-taker positions, and if there's a good candidate and a good backup candidate, that we could engage somebody for the next meeting?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Tim, is that it?
Excellent. So that way we could have somebody in place next time. Tim thanks you for that. I thank you for that. Next on the agenda is the Putney aftercare situation, where Aspire pretty much at the last minute withdrew their long-standing aftercare provider work at the Putney Central School. And there's been a lot of, it's been very difficult on families, we understand. And I think there's been a lot of work trying to find a way that that can continue on. And so I was going to ask Lyle for a quick update.
So Building Bright Futures sent out a bulk email. We've not heard anything from that. I do know that parents have scrambled to put together something with some parents rotating. Our next will be to post it on the WSESU site. I believe Herb's asked to have that posted on our WSESU site, but there has been no one that's come forward interested in that position.
And are there other, school spring or something? Is there other things we can do to try to, I mean, I know it's really tough to find employees, and then to find early childhood employees is just a little bit even harder, but is there anything we could do to kind of, I mean, I've heard from parents that are concerned about losing their jobs.
I mean, I can put it on school spring. Ruby, do you know how many hours that is?
3 to 4 a day, 5 days a week, whatever that math is.
If you pay them enough, you'll get. Because.
Any other board comments on that?
Actually, I wasn't exactly going to say what Liz just said, but when we start looking at budget, maybe we want to look at places that don't have after-school programs and look at what it would take to have an actual sustainable after-school program in place. This wouldn't happen.
Yeah, that's a good equity committee. I mean, that is a real equity for families and for students. Is there any public? I see Ruby. If you could just state your name and the community you're from.
So my name is Ruby McAdoo, and I'm from Putney, and I'm one of the parents who's affected by YSBAR's closure. I'm also one of the parents who's kind of leading the charge of trying to organize things and work with administration and coordinating via survey and spreadsheet who's in trouble, who needs help, and it's been really stressful, as you know. So I'm not here to expand upon what you know about the stress. But I did want to just acknowledge that we really appreciate the work that Herb's been doing, but we also, and everything I'm communicating to you has been communicated to him, so this is not going to be new to him. We have sensed a little bit of disappointment in the way in which he has been approaching putting it out, and actually putting it on the website was our proposal to him because we noticed it wasn't there. We did ask him about school spring, and he had some reasons why he doesn't put para-educator positions on school spring, which he's, I think, reconsidering and considering what to do. So we definitely appreciate it, but at this point, as far as our preference is clearly his as well, which is for the school to figure out a program, or for YSBAR to come back. That would be like super ideal. But that's not moving at a pace that we think is really tenable for our community of parents. And so we are also considering, we're researching and looking at other privately funded ways to get a program together. And this is extremely not ideal for parents because we're already stretched super thin, and we don't feel like it's a sustainable way to approach running a program. But we are looking at the laughter programs, which run at Marlboro and run at Newbrook, and I'm sure there are other places, which is a model that is similar to the one that we would need to follow if we were privately putting anything together. I think that if we do have to do that, it does raise that equity issue again of what kind of effort is being put into our community in finding someone to run a program. The other thing that we would like to just kind of raise is that from the perspective of Putneyites, we also deal with summer camp, which is a completely separate issue. But when we've considered aftercare, there's also the piece of summer care throughout the summer is one that we also is very important to our community, and we've been very happy with. And so we would like to have you consider really tackling that across the district. How are you dealing in each of the communities with the issues of aftercare and the issues of summer opportunities for care. In addition, I think that something that we'd like to do in the interim is figure out some comprehensive way to have a clear list of what's available in aftercare programs across the district. We know, generally speaking, what's in Putney, but I don't know what days they're on, I don't know what times they are, I don't know which grades are eligible, I don't know anything about any programs outside of Putney. And I'm imagining that, you know, someone in Lyle's office probably could help with that or direct us to each of the people in each of the schools so we can gather it. We're willing to do the gathering, but we don't want to reinvent the wheel when we're already burdened with dealing with not only our own, but other people's care to try to get people to not lose their jobs, as you mentioned. And so essentially I've said this before to this board, we're not coming to you to ask you to fix this problem. We understand it's an administrative problem, but I think that what we would like is for clear direction from this board to the administration of Lyle, Herb, and anyone underneath them to make this a priority. And if it means funds, for example, with School Spring, you know, there's a cost involved potentially in posting, and also identifying for us who can be a resource so that we can put together a resource guide of what could you do to fill the gaps in this interim period. It's been pretty disheartening, and I think it's disheartening for her too, that we haven't found anyone. But at this point, we haven't actually, we have nothing to communicate to parents. And so we'd like to communicate to parents and have something that we can hold out as kind of an olive branch of like, well, we don't have any good news. There's nothing to report. But here are some options that you could consider to help fill in. And some of them could be not even in school. My kids are in circus arts. It's a great program. It's wonderful. I still need to drive them there, but ultimately it's something for us to do. So that's really what I'm here to let you know. And I essentially am in that group of parents who are kind of leading the charge. My role is to be the face of it for you. You might someday see other parents here, but for now, it's just me. And so you'll probably see me again until this is resolved.
I appreciate all the work you personally and many people I've heard are really, you know, making sure kindergartners aren't going home to empty houses, and making sure children in Putney are cared for. And I think we all share a concern, and it was really horrible timing. And we are so sorry for the stress that's been put on families with young children. Being a parent, taking care of children in that age range is stressful enough. So I appreciate you sort of representing all those people and taking a charge on that. And I'm just wondering what a good venue, what a good venue for trying to find resources to support families that are looking for alternative, you know, options. Of course, right at the beginning of school, everybody's got a lot of time at the school level to do that. And so maybe I'll have a chat offline with Lyle and see if she has any creative ideas, and send me an email. And
I mean, many schools have after-school programs, whether there's room.
There's not.
For others,
checked.
and that's the problem.
Yeah, and we will be speaking with Marissa, who is the counselor under her. That's one of the people that he'll direct us to. And she will be helping us with thinking creatively about funding strategies. But in addition, I'll be asking her about what resources are there. And so I would imagine at the various schools, there's a kind of a Marissa type person, you know, who she can direct us to. But if we run into any hiccups or hurdles, I may reach out to you, Lyle, just for advice on what to do.
David, do you have a question?
Well, a couple of thoughts. One is Brattleboro schools have pretty robust after-school programs. I'm not sure where I know we had a 21st century grant at one point. I'm not sure where all of the money comes from, but a lot of it is money we put in bit by bit over the years into the budget. The leadership team meets I think regularly. I'm not sure how often they meet, but I encourage ask her to meet with particularly the Brattleboro principals and see what options there are, what other programs are there, what other organizations are there that might participate. And the other thing is is funding. I think if you find, and obviously I can't speak for the whole board, but I would certainly advocate and support, if you find something and there's more funding needed than is currently in the budget for the Aspire program, that we consider finding, assigning resources from wherever we can grab them to put it in place. Because I think over the course of developing our budget, we're certainly going to be looking at investing in after-school programs so this never happens again.
Mm-hmm.
And but that all those kids this year are going to miss out if we wait till next year's budget process. And we can move quickly if we, like we just did to hire somebody. Well, actually,
If you
it
can
took 2
find the
months.
person.
Sorry, not quickly, but we tried a lot of other things first.
Yeah. I just want to say that Aspire is privately funded, it's not school associated, so it's a separate entity that would come in and provide the program, so there's no budget for it.
There's no after-school budget.
So this would be,
Not for Aspire.
There's for other
But
programs.
for other programs, there is.
so I think this is an equity, programmatic equity issue that we kind of need to figure out how we're pushing up against our budgetary cap, so we can't fund everything because we are very close to the cap, and so that has a big tax penalty on it. But I think as the equity committee starts looking at these things and we speak as a group, we can think about what are the priorities for these 10 schools and for all of our children, and what is the best way we can spend the limited funds that we have.
It wouldn't be unusual for us to move money around.
Oh, that's
From a-
what I'm
yeah.
suggesting, but it would come through diversity and equity, but we can't say yes to everything
Right.
because we'll be at $19,000, which will be $20,000 before so just, me, David, bottom line. Any other thoughts or questions, concerns? Great. Moving on to adopting the community use of school facilities policy. Code H3, the changes were made after review with the board. The 75% font size, immediately adjacent to the location publication was the major change, as I recollect. So I would entertain a motion to approve the policy for facility use, policy code H3. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Emily. Do I have a second? I'll give it to Kelly. She hasn't seconded anything. Any discussion?
I do have one thing. I was a little concerned about that last clause about the teachers may not participate in religious clubs / meetings in schools where they work. Just as it pertains to when you have outside organizations holding an event completely outside of school hours. Like, I certainly understand that case law says that teachers can't participate in religious clubs that are part of the school or sort of associated with the school during school hours, and a coach can't pray with the football team before the game. But I see that as a little different, and maybe we're sort of wading into a bit of a difficult First Amendment issue when you, let's say a Guilford teacher during the summer, happens to be part of some organization that's religious that puts on an event at the Guilford school, that they wouldn't be allowed to participate in that? It just seems a little problematic to me.
This was the recommendation from, can't remember,
ACLU?
I think the Anti-Defamation League based on, the Anti-Defamation League based on case law. And we feel like when we have 10 facilities, if they wanted to hold a religious, there's 10 different facilities. So if you're a teacher in Guilford, you would have an academy, because the concern is that students will believe and there will be confusion that the teacher who has an esteemed position in our community has a little bit more pull with children. There'd be confusion in the public.
I understand the concern, but I looked at the ADL white paper and I thought they were talking about the actual school clubs and sports teams type issues, not a completely separate organization that just happens to be using the school. And where we already put a disclaimer in or require a disclaimer that this event isn't associated with the school, and it seems like we've sort of already separated. I see the issue and why people are concerned, and I probably would feel the same way. That, kind of looks odd to have a teacher who's, people in the community are going to associate with that school. But on the other hand, if you're that Guilford teacher could you argue that maybe it's a bit of a hardship, that you'd have to like go to another town to express your religious views?
I also share, I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
I also share the concern, and one of my thoughts was that anyone going to that event would likely be part of that group anyways. So if there's a concern about a teacher teaching about something religious or whatnot to us, someone who is not interested in hearing that or participating, I feel like it's not during school time, if it's in an evening or something, or weekend or something that's not, school is not happening and the normal students aren't there. The parents who bring the children are likely people who would be participating or supporting that, that group in that activity. So. And I'd be concerned about it, for, any liability that might result from it.
I guess on the flip side, because I remember last time when we heard from community members, there was talk about how you could, if you didn't like an event, you could protest an event, right? You could be outside. So there could be students who are outside and then see so-and-so teacher, and they're like, oh, that teacher is not, I don't want to learn from that teacher anymore. Or like, they're associated with that, which I don't believe in. So I mean, I guess that would be the only way I could see students who are not interested in that being there. I know that was brought up.
I would have a concern about students becoming interested in something that, because of a great teacher being involved in it, and that is where the teachers have a lot more power than regular community members with our students. And Anne found for me the case law that, the white paper, sorry, the U.S. Supreme Court the U.S. Supreme Court has not definitively answered this question, but they strongly recommend that teachers not participate in religious clubs meeting in schools where they work.
But that's where I see the distinction, is that they're talking specifically about sort of like an after-school club where like there's the environmental studies club and the forestry club and the Bible studies club. And that I think is totally clear cut, that teachers can't be involved in that. I just think when it's a completely separate organization, that the school's not endorsing their event, and I just have concerns. It makes me a little uneasy because I think, maybe there's room there for someone to object on a constitutional ground.
Sean?
Well, I would be thinking about children, whatever age they were, the young and impressionable children, and if they have somebody they respect who teaches something that they've never heard before and their parents don't agree with, and they could be impressionably influenced by the teacher, I think it would be a problem from my perspective. So I see no issue at all with the restriction.
I don't see an issue either. Thinking of this as the fact that the teacher, this is their place of employment, and a religious or other meeting would be personal life, extracurricular. It's not in my mind a significant hardship to say that you have to separate them between your place of employment and your personal life. I don't see the hardship.
Any other comments? Shall we vote on this, or do we want to table it for the next meeting?
Well, I did receive an email from somebody who was dealing with the use of facilities issue, but then the person said it's not done, and we said you can delete it, but it might be good to get that person's input. So if we did set on it until our next meeting, it could be in the
I think Tim raises an interesting question. I think we might want to take time to think about it and talk about it a little bit more and clarify that, the distinction that that he made, which I think the law makes, but maybe the policy doesn't make it directly as it should. If the policy committee doesn't like to have talk about it.
So I'm feeling like people want to table this till the next meeting. The policy committee can take it up in committee on next Tuesday. And if
Next Tuesday?
This coming Tuesday?
Tuesday after, isn't it? Same Tuesday as the meeting?
Oh, I meant next Tuesday.
Okay, we'll do that too.
We can make it the, I meant this Tuesday when we were talking in the meeting. Maybe we can have a quick conversation with the attorney that advised us on this originally, just in case he can weigh in on WIG versus, Good News Club versus WIG.
Good News Club versus Milford Central,
so-
and WIG is up for
WIG versus Sioux Falls, and just see if he if he feels there's a distinction, the attorney feels there's a distinction or not, and make sure we're doing the best thing. So that is tabled. Look, we're filling up our.
Is this on the website, H3?
H3, yes, it's on the, under the agendas. Barb has it listed right under tonight's agenda with a live link to it. And also the email I sent you, I believe, has a live link to that.
Do you send it 3 o'clock or something?
9 o'clock this morning. Okay, next, the meeting scheduling to revisit alternating Wednesdays for our meeting schedule. The one person that was not here last time has a conflict. So Vernon has a conflict Mondays, right?
Yes,
And that's the first and third Monday?
they're second and fourth.
Second and fourth. So I hate to do this again. And there may be we may have to resolve conflicts otherwise, but how many people are available second and fourth Mondays?
That's Vernon.
I mean, first and third Mondays, sorry. First and third Mondays?
I'm not sure.
Okay. I'm only slightly available. Tuesdays, there's no conflict otherwise, SU-wise?
I have a first and third conflict this week.
So, okay.
Second and fourth.
Second and fourth Tuesday. Does that work for anybody?
That doesn't work for me, I think.
So the other Wednesday doesn't work for me is VSBA, but I could,
That's later in the
later in the agenda. Who knows, maybe that won't be. So let's move on to Thursday, first and third Thursday. Who's available? Raise your hand.
I'm not sure. I think no, but
Okay.
Oh,
Second
I
and
can
fourth
see.
Thursday. Second and fourth Thursday. Okay, so Thursdays look good, and the other one that was maybe good. Oh, you didn't vote for Thursday?
I can't do Thursday.
You can't do
I'm
Thursday.
sorry, I'm not following what's the conflict for the Wednesdays.
The second and fourth Wednesday. The second Wednesday, I have a VSBA meeting, and Sean has a conflict on the third Wednesday.
Right.
Okay, I didn't catch that. Okay.
So I could step down from my VSBA position. Driving up to Montpelier is not my favorite thing, but I feel like I should stick it out through the next round, so. Okay, so let's try this next go-round. Tim, bring your schedule. Okay, fair enough. The final committee list approval. I sent a link with all the committee assignments. I just would like to have a vote because we have an SU meeting coming up on the 9th, so we have to make sure that everybody knows their assignments and that we have voted on the slate.
The adjustment, the Sustainability Council has Thomas on it and me, and I think Sean?
Yeah,
Do you have?
interest.
And Emily? Can you join the Sustainability Council if we have
I might be able to, but it depends on.
I think I had a mite from Sean and a mite from Emily.
And Tim and I for sure.
Tim, you're on
No,
sustainability?
Thomas and I.
Tom and you were definites, I thought, and then we had some maybes.
Yeah, I'm not on the list though, on the list.
Oh, you're not on the list, okay. I will have Barb add that, I have a few new chair ads and everything else, okay.
And
Thank
when do you
you.
want to discuss the when we're going to meet?
After the meeting?
After the meeting? Okay.
But I just want us to vote on the slate so that we have that
Yeah.
down, and so we can add, and you can always just show up at committee meetings and participate, where they're all warned and everything else. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the slate with the change of Dave's goals being added to the Sustainability Council.
So moved.
Thank you, Tim. Do I have a second? Thank you, Ann. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the slate of committee appointments, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions, the ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The Sustainability the committees are appointed. There is an SU meeting this coming Monday. The other ad that we have is I am required as the chair to sign a document from the New Hampshire Department of Education regarding acceptance of tuition to the Windham Regional Career Center, which we just toured, so you know what I'm talking about.
There should be Perkins funding from New Hampshire that we accept each year to help pay for students coming in from.
I would move that we authorize our chair to sign the document for Perkins funding
Second.
from New Hampshire.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of authorizing the chair to sign the Perkins funding from the state of New Hampshire, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And I will sign that at the end of the meeting. Okay, moving on.
And I thank you for that.
We always like to take money. We
Yes.
find that to be an exceedingly easy task. I also have, so I mentioned Head Start Reporter Communication, so let me know if you have interest in going to that. It's in Boston, it should be nice, right in Government Center. Moving on to new business, I'm going to table the mission vision statements since we have not even completed our board mission statement, which when I did this agenda, I thought we were going to do that last week at the retreat. So I think we have to get our overall vision clarified and reviewed, and so I'll table that to another meeting. The next item under new business is the VSBA dues. We had decided to discuss this in early September because there were concerns on the board. As a VSBA member, the policy is that I must agree to a duty of loyalty, that I can take no action that would harm the VSBA. And so I find that to be somewhat of a conflict of interest with me chairing this discussion, if we're gonna have this discussion, because I have a duty of loyalty to that organization. So if I were to, I am therefore not actually free to speak against the organization because of the duty of loyalty to that organization. You can see that was a tricky one. Yes, David?
I believe it was in July, just before our annual meeting, we had a meeting downstairs in one of the conference rooms in the high school, and we voted to not pay the VSBA dues until the board had a chance to talk about it. And this would be a chance, except it's really late, and there's the regional meetings are coming up, and the VSBA conference is coming up, and there may be things that are developing there that would make us want to stay with VSBA or make it clear that we don't want to. So I would encourage or recommend or move that we postpone this until after the regional and statewide conference. I don't know if we have an outstanding bill.
We do.
We do, yeah, but that we just not pay it until we, yeah.
I would,
Do I know the amount of the bill?
6,000 something,
Something like
8
that,
to
yeah.
7,000, something in that range.
Yeah. Closer to 8, I would guess.
Yeah.
It seems like it would be even a little more. Did I give you that bill? One of us has the bill.
let's say 8. Somebody said 8 in passing, actually, now that I think of it. I hear a motion on the table. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Thomas. Any further discussion on that motion? I think it'd be great to show up at the regional meeting and get to see what the resolutions are that they're talking about, and be able to kind of hear what's going on, because a lot of the board members have not been to a regional meeting or have not had any interface with the VSBA. So I know we've talked about it a little bit, but that would probably be the best way to go forward with that. So, all those in favor of the motion to table this until after regional meetings, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it.
Oh, it's good news, it's 4,100.
Oh,
Good news.
really? So the Leadership Council policy, I handed that out on paper. I apologize, we had a lot of challenges somehow getting it to fruition, but we added the changes that were asked for at the last meeting about the representation and about the advisory nature of the leadership councils. So those are in bold, I believe, the changes. And so if that is working for people, I can move that forward and warn that as a policy for our next meeting. Because I know the principals kind of are working off this, but I think it'd be really nice if people are adhering to a policy that we actually have a policy. Call me crazy. So everybody fine with those changes? We'll move it forward and warn that for the next meeting? Okay, it will be on the agenda, so you have one more. Yes, sorry.
So it says here that the members will be appointed by the board, so you guys will appoint the members, not the principals of the schools.
Ultimately, yeah. The teachers will choose their own, and
Okay.
the
I
committee
just wanted to
representatives
be
will choose
clear on
themselves.
that. Okay, thank you.
And how is that how does that happen? Do community members apply to be in leadership councils?
Yeah, community members would apply, and the board is, it's just an appointment. It's not, we're not bestowing power. We cannot statutorily give the board power to somebody, but we, just to make it formal and have a clear and transparent process, we agree that the board will appoint.
And the process for that will be on the district website?
I don't think we have a process for that.
We don't have a policy yet.
We're gonna have to have a policy, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We have quite a task ahead of us in terms of not having any policies 3 months ago when we started, or a budget. So we're just trying to put things in place so that we can operate and try and involve the public at a school level. So we've really been pushing on really energetically to get this one on board so that it's clear, and have taken a lot of public input on this. Excellent. Next agenda items. Please send me, I've talked about a bunch of them, the warrant system. We will not be up for doing the VSBA. Hopefully we'll have a mission statement to review. I'm sure there'll be about, 10 or 20 other things that show up, but if there's anything on anybody's mind, I will try. I've been very challenged because of the challenges at the central office level with the school year starting and people not being available. I really would like to send out the agendas the day before. They have to be posted. But Barb Nowakowski's like the only person that can post an agenda, so if she's not there, I had about 12 hours to put an agenda out and suss it out. So I will really try to circulate it so that if you have ads. But if you think of something, tell me now, or email me.
Two things. One is that we talked about having a pre-K representative. It's come up a bunch of times. We actually put it on the agenda, and the point one, we'll start the process of appointing pre-K representative to join us on the board. And the other is if we could get a report on, Lila mentioned at the retreat that special ed is taking up pretty much, well, everybody's everything. And if we could just start to get a series of reports on what's happening. Thank you.
The next meeting we have scheduled at Academy, and so we will do the same. Kelly Dias is looking forward to showing the school, and it'll be approximately the same amount of time.
Great.
And that is Wednesday, am I correct?
That is
Wednesday until
The
we,
18th.
yeah, until we can figure out a day that works for all of the busy people.
And you noticed that as Nancy said, I've asked all administrators to get me these so that I can get you a monthly report from each school to you ahead of the second Wednesday of the month. So those will be coming to you for you to look at. All in the same format.
So you're saying this form, while we're visiting schools, we'll receive this kind of overview format?
You should receive this from every school every month.
So we might want to talk about, I know one thing we were talking about in the programmatic equity is if we're going to be tracking certain goals or, maybe the special ed or some district-wide goals, it might be good to have more data sets versus, student population data and things like that. It depends. I think at the beginning, I was saying, actually, I mentioned to David, it seems really nice overview when we're just getting introduced to the Career Center and all this, so we can kind of say, okay, this is the student population, this is how many students. But it might be that after that first introduction, we might think about changing it. So.
And I think we talked about looking at that, right? No, we didn't. Just you and I did, because we were familiar with it.
But maybe it's
this is the format that we use at Brattleboro, we developed, and it's got good information in it, but there's not a lot of, we can't see trends. There's no, overview longitudinally, it's just like a snapshot. So we're going to just think about what data we want to see that way and what other data we have. And that's part of our work.
For the first little bit, though, I think, because we're going to be switching schools, it's going to take maybe a month or so or more, and we can receive these snapshots. So we'll have a little time to report out to the board and say, are these some of the trends that we'd all like to see? Maybe we can put that together. I don't know about the next meeting when we're creating some goals,
Right.
but maybe the meeting after that.
We just keep creating work for ourselves. Well,
I'd be on that committee, but I can't be on another committee, so that sounds awesome. I'm looking forward to that. That'd be great. Okay, that is all my ads, right, Anne? You're gonna appropriately say, Excellent. So, wow, this is record. We've gotten to the public comment for items not on the agenda. And we will have an executive session after that for 2 items, so FYI. So, I'd just like to know how many people want to speak, because if everybody wants to speak to, multiple topics, I just want to make sure that we're not all here till midnight.
Some of us are the same topic, I think.
So I got 5, so I'm good with 2 to 3 minutes per person if you need more time. And can you, do you mind being a timekeeper? And if you need more time, just holler out. We don't have 20 people.
What are we going to have, 3?
3 minutes, just give people a...
So what I'll do is when you reach 3, I'll just put up 3 fingers, and then if you keep going, I'll just put up more fingers.
Is everybody on the same topic, or are we gonna...
I have no idea, but they're not on the agenda, so I'm just taking public comment at the end of the day.
Okay, I'm Nancy Grouse. You all should have received a letter
I
written.
confirmed at the beginning, everybody had, yes.
Okay, so, you didn't refer which letter it was, so I wasn't sure about that. So I received a lovely note back from Lyle Holiday, and there's one part we would like to know. This is about the week of the 20th to the 27th, which is an international climate justice week, when including a student walkout in conjunction with Greta Thunberg addressing the United Nations about the crisis that confronts the next generation if we don't act on climate change yesterday. And we were asked, a group of us were about maybe 60 or 80 adults were at 118 Elliott Street when some students that go to VUHS said they didn't feel that they were getting enough climate education regarding the climate crisis, and B, that when they tried to do political work, especially in conjunction with walkouts and other kinds of activism, they did not feel supported by the high school at all. And to me, I feel like it's pretty critical that our students who who are putting together, who are learning how to act, learning how to become activists, learning how to speak up about possibly the most important issue of their lifetimes, be supported and not treated the same way someone who walks out of the building to have a smoke is treated. It's not the same, and I feel like that kind of walkout, that, or whatever the students choose to do, I feel like it's something our community, many of us, hundreds of people who are taxpayers and parents and grandparents in this community strongly support that action on the part of students. And we feel like in a community like this that prides itself as being a fairly progressive community, we should be able to support our students. And in the note from Superintendent Holliday, she says that she has a meeting scheduled with principal parent, and I was wondering if that happened, and if it did, what was the upshot of that meeting? Thank you.
So I met with both principal parent and principal Lyman, and board chair, Christina Naylor. And we did talk about some ideas that are being floated for how we work on climate at the school level. And we also talked about students leaving school. And when there is civil disobedience, there are consequences. And those consequences need to be the same for whatever reason a student walks out. We can't make exceptions because we happen to agree with one particular point of view over a point of view that we disagree with.
But I'd like to actually, there was, the other part of the discussion is though that there are procedures for students to leave school. BAMS has procedures and BUHS has procedures to sign out of school. And I think the safety of our students was the thing that we were concerned about. If we have students in middle school walking out of school and we don't know where they are, it's a real risk for students. So whatever a student is, I don't want to misspeak, but whatever the procedures are for leaving school for an event, the school is not weighing in. If the students want to go to a climate change and the family has agreed they can and sent them with a note and signed them out, they are free to attend those events. There was no issue from either BAMS or BUHS that as long as the procedures for leaving school, it's the same as a doctor's appointment, religious activity that a student might be attending, an act of conscience. Now that's not then civil disobedience, so there's that, but it is supporting a student to go to that just so long as we are sure that their students are safe and that we know where the students are.
Well, okay, I'll just, other people want to speak, but I just want to reference, for example, the walkout, was that last year, the Parkland support walkout in front of the high school? And I feel like that was something that definitely, I don't feel like if there's a similar event, if students say we want to walk out and stay on school property and be very disciplined about it, organize this, I don't see that that is the same as students just walking out to. You don't agree? Or
I do agree.
And I feel like the treatment should be different for students that are walking out to participate, to organize and participate in a disciplined event that's on school property.
That's totally different.
Okay, well that's what.
Assuming you were talking about your letter, that people were going to be leaving campus. The group that planned Parkland worked with both principals actually, to make sure that there were safe options for anyone who wanted to walk out. And actually, principal parent is here if you want to talk about what the procedure is.
So the Parkland walkout, that was a well-publicized national event. I had a group of 4 students who came and met with me during February vacation because they felt strongly about it. So we met several times in the weeks leading up to it. I also met with students who were in support of Second Amendment rights. And as a result of those conversations, we actually had a wonderful educational experience for all kids. Those students, I can't say enough about the way they conducted themselves, the way they planned. They arranged for road closures. They worked with Mark Kerrigan from Brat PD. They did a stellar job. And then in the following weeks, we had students who were also felt passionately about Second Amendment rights. they followed that same process with me. They sat down with me, they talked to me, they said, this is what we're thinking. One of the things that we talk about when students come and they want to do a demonstration, one of the things we do talk about is visibility. And if you want to get your message out, the best time to get your message out is actually before school and after school, because that's when the traffic is highest and that's when you get the most eyeballs on your calls. So I think in those cases, you know, I think those were actually paragons of good planning on the students' parts, and I applaud what they did. For me personally, you know, obviously in my role and in Mr. Lyman's roles, we're not going to take a position on whether we think an event is good or bad. That's not appropriate for me to do, you know, whether it's political or any other kind of issue. So.
Get a discussion about that.
Sure,
We're not doing that
I would
right now.
gladly talk
That's
to you
not
about
a discussion for right now.
Sure, I would gladly talk to you about that.
But other people,
So was there somebody else that wanted to?
there were other people who wanted to address this.
I have something different, but I don't know.
I'm Django Grace. I'm a student here in Brattleboro. Right now I'm in 8th grade at Hilltop Montessori School. But I went to Academy for the first 7 years of my education, and I'm going to BOHS, and I'm pretty set on that. And after I saw the Career Center, I am even more set-er. I would just like to say, one, I want to really push the thing for the 20th on the walkout. I know that you guys have jobs to carry out, and I fully understand that. But it's like whatever you guys can do is super appreciated. And I also just I want to thank you guys for embracing every view that students have and kind of letting us do this kind of thing, like with the parking thing. Also, I wanted to talk about on the 20th. It's not only civil disobedience. I was kind of thinking the school board or the school system could kind of embrace the week of the 20th instead of seeing it as a time where the students are going to revolt. I was thinking, well, it could be used as a week, kind of an excuse for education. So I was thinking maybe, in the elementary schools, just like taking a little time out of at least one of the days to talk about climate change and what it is. I mean, a lot of my peers don't even know what it is and what the effects are. Also, just like planting trees is great for especially the younger kids at elementary schools. And just being able to talk about it with teachers is super great. I was also thinking, a lot of my friends go to BAMS. I go to Hilltop, so it's totally different there. But like, I know there's one class where you like do a weekly project about like news or something, or I don't know. But there could be ways to like theme the education around climate change. So you could talk about how you could investigate the school's carbon footprint and like do that with math. Research climate change as like individual projects. I was like looking at the school's portfolio with stocks and things and divesting in oil companies and fossil fuel industries. So I think that it's definitely it's a great way to educate everybody about climate change, and I think it'd be great if I don't know, maybe some educators want to talk about that with me. I'd be totally open to that.
Thank you, Django. We always like to take money, and we always like an excuse to do education around here. And I think it would be okay for me to say that I know Mr. Parent has spoken with department heads about trying to do some of that work already during that week. And I mean, there are things that have to happen, but I, as a recovering educator, can say I can see many ways in which that could be incorporated in many different disciplines. So, so I think that work is being looked at. Thank you, Django. And I guess we can just stay on this topic. If somebody has another topic, I'd just like to. Okay.
At Putney Central, for the Parkland thing, there are kids go and stand in front of the building who wanted to participate in that.
We did.
I think different schools do different things in our district, and there's different things you would do in an elementary school versus a high school. So I mean, there's a lot to consider, and I think all schools had some sort of observance of that, and it was handled differently based on the children in the building, and it was very student-led too, which I think is the appropriate thing to really take the lead from the students in this. Yes, speaking of.
Mostly
If you could just say your name, I'm sorry, I lost track of that.
I'm Maya. I go to BUHS. I'm a senior. So it came to mind. I know you talked about how like it's really important that the school give everyone a voice and make sure like there isn't a group of people that feel like more important. I guess or like feel like their voices are more heard. And I remember like a roadblock that we faced when we were trying to plan a morning rally was that we weren't allowed to send emails out to the whole school. By just like, typing in BUHS or BAMS because it wasn't a school-sponsored event. And I can totally understand if we were like, oh, come and go knock down some trees, or like, we hate this group. But I would feel personally okay if somebody who wanted to preach Second Amendment rights was like, please come to my morning rally. And I think that it should be totally fine if somebody who wants to, if students at the school want to plan an event, it should be okay for them to send an email and say, please come to my event. I don't know, that doesn't feel like it should be totally unreasonable, I guess. We also weren't allowed to make an announcement, which is, I guess, a little bit different. But yeah, I feel like it should be okay for students who are planning events that maybe aren't organized by the school to send out emails to the school about them. Yeah. And I know I talked to you about that.
Right, and that's a conversation that we've had with our council several times. And they've said your educational email should be for educational purposes. And, for school-related functions, not for functions that could be misconstrued in other ways, because the question is, where do you draw that line? You talk about people saying we're going to knock down trees, If you have one group with a vested interest do it outside the educational realm, then you're going to be asking everybody to do it. And I think there's a danger there. And so, that's the legal advice we were given, and that's the legal advice we followed.
I was going to say, I think when you say counsel, you mean legal counsel.
Right, counsel, yeah, legal counsel, right.
Sorry. Thank you for that clarification. Kelly, you had a question.
I just have a question about if they're not allowed to send emails, and I can see both sides of that, but how is, regardless of what the event is,
Sure.
how do they go about sort of advertising their event?
We have a community billboard that people can post things to. We do screen that for appropriateness. We have a community billboard that people can use. If they want to, find a place to run things off, they can hand things out to students as they're coming in the door. So.
I would like to point out that I was approved for posters. So not that I want those posters to not be available for the next time, but it just feels like the rule is very strict and also not entirely explained. I don't know. I just feel like there's some inconsistencies in that.
I think we're all walking through that very carefully because if we allow one student to, then as we're discovering in many of our policies, then we have to allow everyone to, and some parents may not be happy with their children's educational emails being used for a group that they don't philosophically agree with. And I don't think we're talking about what you're talking about, but if we say yes to one non-educationally related group, I'm pretty clear with all the attorneys I've spoken to, we have to treat all of them the same. And it doesn't matter if 100% of the people on the board agree with your position, unfortunately. So I think that's what we're all grappling with and trying to make sure that we are following the laws.
Can I make a
Yes.
comment?
Oh, yeah, sure.
So I mean, it seems like actually a nice opportunity not to just pass it back off to the students, but for the students to maybe organize, and this is just one idea, but maybe the student council could do something where they start approving some of the students, outreach and collecting emails from students or gathering a student listserv of personal email addresses. I don't know if that's legal or not, or having a school-wide Facebook group. I mean, I know that the representative town meeting did that for a while, and I mean, it might just be another way for you to get stuff out, but then it wouldn't be a school-centered or school-sponsored thing because it's actually through specifically, I don't know if this, we'd have to get legal opinion on that, but if it was something that the school council did.
I'd have to kind of consider that. I don't know. I would check with our council.
Yeah.
But students can do Facebook, Twitter, whatever other platform they choose to use, obviously, anybody can use those, so.
Speaking of student council, Amelia Glickman.
I would like to mention this is not on behalf of student council, but just that I've been working with Maya on similar issues, and in terms of if we're talking about climate change issues, both of us spoke to a science teacher recently, and at least at the high school level, we're trying to get some sort of student organization going. And something that I really got out of that is this issue has become very political, but the actual science behind it it's an educational issue. It's not a political issue. It is the facts of what's going on in our world. So in this sense, I think that it should be supported by our educational institution. It's not a political issue, it's reality. That's all.
Thank you. I do hope we're teaching our students to think critically and understand research and make their own decisions. Thank you, Amelia. Yeah, David, you?
It's also a social issue and a communications issue and a political issue and a math issue. It covers all, it can be covered in all the curriculum, and I think one of the things I'd encourage you to do is talk to your two teachers, which you're obviously doing already, and get other people to do the same thing and ask them how can you use that week for this opportunity. The other thing I'd encourage you to do is when the week is done, or actually when you get home tonight, watch the presentations that the Democratic candidates are doing on TV about their plans for climate change, and then get across the river and get somebody nominated that's going to support your values.
Bernie's on at 8:40.
Is this one last question?
Sure. So the email that Lyle sent, Lyle, you mentioned a group of teachers in the email. So I just wondered, is that group of teachers a list that maybe students that are interested can be aware of? Who is it that is sort of forming sort of this new sort of let's do this, let's address it in the curriculum, climate change in the curriculum, if that would be made available to the students that are really...
I don't see why not. I meet with that group of teachers on Monday, so I'll bring that up to them. It makes sense that they wouldn't care. But
Just so,
yeah, I'll bring that up with them.
Because that's another support for everybody that's concerned, and there are a lot of young people concerned.
Sorry. In the front, sorry, she was...
Oh, just new topic yet, or?
Is there anybody else on this topic?
I just have one thing on that topic. So one of the things I've been doing at the Career Center is looking at our curriculum that we teach and then identifying where it matches the Common Core standards. So I've been spending a whole lot of time looking at the Common Core standards, which is what we're supposed to be teaching to. One of the things I will say to you is it is a K-12 Common Core standard to look at climate change. We as educators are required to teach that. So we do teach that in a number of courses. I know it's taught in earth and space science here. I know it's taught in natural resources and forestry. I know we do green building in our program in construction. So I think one of the things that often happens for students and for teachers as well and parents is that because our standards are K-12, we teach that year after year after year, and students especially, forget that you've really been studying climate change since you were in kindergarten when you started planting seeds. And it's really important that we as a community focus on the science and the math and the facts of climate change, and that as educators, we aren't allowed to share our political views with you. And so you have to develop your own political views based on your own research and what you learn through what we teach and what your parents teach and what your community teaches. And I think Brattleboro is really dedicated to addressing this issue as a community, but also as a school district. And as much as we want to work with you guys and we want our kids to be politically active, we have to draw the line at safety. And so sometimes that's a really hard thing to do and a really hard place to be. So I just wanted to say that our teachers spend a lot of time working on that, and they're required to work on it, even though it may not feel like it's a lot of time. I think if you really think about it, a lot of what you know about climate change came through your education. And so I just add that piece.
I'm sorry, can I?
Sorry, and I didn't mean to start a debate.
It's good to have the discussion. I just want to make sure we get to everybody who came to give input on other topics, so maybe we can give a 30-second follow-up on this, because I know other people have been waiting to.
I'm talking less than 30 seconds
Okay.
even.
Which is just that I would think maybe, rather than have this at the end of a long meeting, maybe the school could consider a community discussion with students and taxpayers, and in fact, and as many teachers and board members as want to attend, about this very subject, and how, you know, a real dedicated time to actually talk about this, and not at the end of a meeting when people are tired and wanting to leave. So I would really appreciate that, and I would certainly be happy to help plan it and help participate in it and get the word out.
Thank you.
I don't need to talk, but I just wanted to, I just wanted to say that actually that's not, well, at least through 6th grade, I didn't learn anything about climate change that wasn't on my own time. That wasn't, everything I've learned about climate change, I have volunteered to learn. And I don't even know why I care about it so much. But it's like, since I found out about it, which was in like 2nd grade, I took my own time to research about it, and there was nothing in school. I talked to my teacher about it, and she didn't even know that much about it. Like there wasn't in 6th grade we had this one individual research project, and I decided to research climate change. This is the only thing I've ever had through 6th grade that is anything related to climate change. So it's not really true, and I really would like to say I'm sorry, but you guys are not doing enough.
Thank you for your input. So perhaps standards change too, so maybe what was happening in 2nd grade, way back, those days you were there.
It wasn't that long ago. He was pretty young.
You would believe how long it can change things in education, so that's the other thing. So moving on to the next topic, because I think everybody's gotten a chance that wanted to speak to that, and I think, I'm sorry, you had your hand up first to speak on another topic.
Hi, my name is Krista Yagdin. I live in Guilford. I am the parent of a 11-year-old who is curious and determined and loves maps, and he also has Down syndrome. So I'm here, my presence will be here. I hope to be at these meetings to really help as we move to these conversations about Act 173, about how children with disabilities and parents of children with disabilities, what their experiences in the school district. I don't find that special education is often a priority in a conversation unless it involves money, and I really want the conversation regarding the experience of kids with disabilities like my son have in the supervisory union, and what kind of programs we have to really ensure that the best teaching and the best inclusive practices are happening. So I just wanted to say that. I know it's late, but that's why I'm here.
This is early for some of our meetings.
Yes. My name is Marilyn Chiarello. I live here in Brattleboro, and I am here because I am very concerned about the installation of artificial turf here on one of our playing fields. I came to this from an environmental point of view mostly, and so I totally agree with a lot of the climate discussion that was going on, but this is a little bit separate. What I had known originally was, oh yeah, there's sometimes increased levels of injury, things like that, but as I did more homework and research, my first impression, actually even before I did that, I've been studying soil, and I say, do we really want to cover living grass? Do we really want to put a rug down that's artificial, toxic material that is going to prevent the microbes from doing their job, which is they balance out carbon and water cycles with artificial turf. And as I went further, I saw these other reasons, including the exposure to the toxins, but we don't know for sure if one causes cancer or this causes that. But we are already being exposed to such a cocktail of toxins in our life. To introduce more, especially to young people who are going to be right on that ground and maybe it would get in through skin or inhaling or something. We don't know what other toxins are going to be doing and what combination of this and this and this and this. We don't know. We don't even know those indications with drugs, as with prescription drugs. So how do we know that one little toxin that's in this may not interact with something else that children are being exposed to? So that was one piece. The site I came across that really gave me a lot of information was TURI, Toxins Use Reduction Institute at UMass Lowell, and I have literature. I know you have not enough things to read, so I figured I'd give you some more because I think you need to see this. What we have in here is athletic playing fields, and this is pretty much my timer. I didn't set it. I don't know how it got set. But this pretty much gives the whole picture. And then they have a couple of case studies, reports from Springfield, Mass. And Marblehead, where they have installed organic turf and their use on athletic fields. I also prepared a whole list of links from the TURI site that I think are really valuable and hopefully will guide future decision making. I don't know how far along you are in the process. I believe it's going out to bid, but I think not to include real grass organically managed is not really being very prudent, and it really must be a consideration in my opinion. And I think that many others here would probably agree with that. One of the biggest concerns that I had, aside from the lack of habitat for the microbes, the least of us in this world that are doing the most work. They are really important with controlling climate change. They balance out the water and the carbon cycles. We have problems with flood control. You have natural grass would be doing that. And it will create a cooling effect rather than the heat island that can be caused by artificial turf. In some cases, the temperature of the artificial turf can be as much as even 80 degrees higher than the ambient temperature. That's dangerous. And considering that our climate is probably going to get a little warmer here in Vermont than it was, I think that it's a long-term investment, and it's not that long-term. It's last about 8 to 10 years to go into this expense of over $1 million every 8 years. For what? I don't see any positive benefits. I really don't. So I'm going to distribute this, so you'll have something to read tonight.
Thank you. We're a nerdy bunch. We appreciate your reading. You should know that the RFPs that went out did include a natural grass.
Great. I'm glad to hear that.
So that.
I'm happy to hear that. But I just maybe.
No, we love reading.
Do you have this electronically and that list of?
The list, it's in here. There's a list of links. So, and I can send it.
You can send it electronically, then we can post it so other people can look at it.
I have maybe 9 copies here.
There's 8 of us.
I think I have.
Christina,
Yes.
did you say the RFP will include natural grass?
That's what we asked for, yeah.
Yeah.
At the last meeting, there was a motion.
Perfect.
I think that was your motion.
It was my motion, but we deleted it.
I think we tabled it.
We tabled it because David also wanted to include another playing field, and we didn't feel like we had
So
time
we
to talk
didn't
about the
finish
playing
the
field.
conversation.
So I had understood that, it seemed like from an email that I got recently that we were tabling it because the RFP process was gonna take a long time.
Right.
So I just assumed that our voting on
And
what
we
we wanted.
didn't, we voted to include, there was a motion to remove the natural field.
Right.
Turf, we voted to include it, and then it was getting late, and I wanted to put in, let's see what it costs to buy FMLR. and you said, let's table it.
So we have to
So
put
we
it on the
haven't
next
really
agenda.
approved the RFP yet.
My fault, I am sorry.
Another item for next week?
Another item.
May I add that there is a cost analysis link in that document, which I'll send David. I had been in communication with him before this meeting, but I'll send David the list in electronic form, which will make it a lot easier to click and get to these things.
And before people leave, thank you all for coming. This is really helpful, and as you can see, it pays off.
I think, I'm sorry,
Christina,
did you have
I have a comment about this too.
Okay, is this a comment on this?
That is something else.
Okay. Emily, why don't you do your comment and then we'll go to.
Well, I just wanted to know, I mean, we didn't really talk about this, but the communications committee, we had talked about, so on the on the website, there used to be a place for press releases. And one thing I know Tim, myself, and Jamie talked about on the communications committee was how to best inform audiences about topics that are of strong community interest. This would be one. So we were gonna develop some protocols that we would then share with everybody, get approval of, and then additionally have timelines for how we were, essentially show you the draft, and then there was a timeline to get feedback maybe. But now we're confronted with an issue that may be of community importance, and we may wanna share it out in certain ways to ensure that people can have a voice. So I guess I would ask the board how best to go about that as the communications committee. Should we formulate a plan? We're meeting tomorrow, right? Should we formulate a plan and share it out with you with the draft language? And then how would we get approval though?
We can't do it until we meet as a board because we cannot take action unless we've convened as a board.
So then how would we invite people to participate in the conversation in a way that's a little different when the conversation's coming up so quickly?
We could make a motion to allow the communications council to come up with a plan and run it. How many people are on the communications council? 3. How many board members?
2.
Okay, so run it by Ann and I, then we're not a quorum. So we could make a motion that Ann and I, in conjunction with the communications council, could approve for this
one case.
One
Until we get
case.
protocols up.
You got that, Tim?
Yeah,
So moved.
Is there a second to David's motion?
Second.
All those in favor of the motion on the table, which Tim knows what it is, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays or abstentions? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Thank you, Emily, for bringing that up in a timely manner. You're all set?
Yeah, thank you.
Henry Zucchini, Brattleboro. I came for that purpose because I remember from 2 weeks ago that you're getting ready to discuss again the field. I would echo everything you said, that I'm deeply opposed to the artificial field for any number of reasons that were already discussed, but just that the schools have so many needs, and we'd be, as admitted by Frank Brecker, taking money out of the reserve fund to fund this field, which to me is outrageous given some of the needs I see at the high school and I'm sure at the other schools in the district. So I just want to strongly encourage the board not to go ahead with approving a turf field, which I've said on many occasions. Also, I didn't realize the agenda, as far as the Vermont School Board Association goes, I would like to strongly encourage the board to not be involved as a member of that board. You probably know right now in the negotiations between the NEA and the Vermont School Board Association that the Vermont School Board Association, from the NEA's point of view, has not been doing its due diligence as far as preparing a real counter proposal or coming to the table in good faith to negotiate about health care and the future of the statewide healthcare plan. And maybe that's why the board's debating whether you should be a part of that, I don't know. But the NEA came very fully prepared and really ready to negotiate, and the VSBA didn't, and their proposal was incredibly draconian. It would really increase the amount that teachers would have to pay and really hurt our ESP members who would it would almost be unaffordable for them. So with the Vermont School Board taking that kind of position on healthcare, it seems to me it would be a good time for this board to say we don't support that kind of draconian perspective on healthcare and with our teachers and ESP members. So thank you.
So ESP, can you just clarify?
Educational support professionals. Yeah.
And it's not exactly the VSBA, I have to say, it's sort of a quasi-VSBA situation, but the VSBA is intricately linked through some Byzantium legislative setup, and it is not going well. You are correct, Mr. Zucchini, but it's not entirely, there are VSBA members on it, but other members throughout the state are on it and not part of this. So thank you for that. Okay, So I would entertain a motion under VSA 313, Section 1, to enter into executive session to discuss, hold on, I'm looking for my wording, to discuss academic records, suspension or discipline of students that are not subject to public review.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Anne. All those in favor of the motion to enter into executive session?
Aye.
Nays, abstentions? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. We can go in the conference room. There's going to be no action.